So this is the first of. We're not going to get to the second game. There's just too many questions to ask. But I call this name association. Essentially, I'm going to give you a sentence, a description, and you tell me the first name that comes into your head. So it could be from any wrestling personality from any locker room. And the first sentence is the funniest person in the locker room.
Baron von Raschke.
Right, that's a name that's never come up in the 100 times I've asked this. Why Baron? Why Baron?
Because he was hilarious.
Jokes with the way he walked.
Yeah, no, just the things that he said.
There you go.
He.
Do you know, everyone says Brad Armstrong, so I'm glad to have a different name in that finally, I'll tell you. This one's going to be the easiest one.
Brad Armstrong was funny too.
Yeah, last man standing at the bar, apart from Andre.
I was never in there that late, so I don't know.
Do you not just see the carnage the next morning and say, oh, well, he made it?
There were some nights, but I usually cut out of there.
Fair enough then. Fair enough. We should move on. Smelliest wrestler.
Oh gosh, I can't think of his name, but I was just starting, and he had a diet of garlic. Oh my God. When he started sweating, it was friggin' horrifying.
It wasn't Nikolai Volkov, was it? Because someone else said something about garlic about him.
No. This was an old timer that I wrestled a few times when I was first starting in the Carolinas, and I can't remember who it was.
But a garlicky man.
Oh God!
Jeez.
And I mean, yeah. Oh, when he started sweating, it was horrifying.
I'm sorry for reminding you. Most dangerous situation you found yourself in.
It was, and I don't really remember just exactly. It was in Corpus Christi, and I can't think of the ring. I mean the matches, but it was, he used to load his boot, and we had switched him babyface, and this was back before they had metal railing. It was just ropes.
Yeah.
And the officers that were supposed to protect you were sometimes maybe fans, and we were fighting back up to the towards the dressing room, and the fans were almost in a riot situation, and my side got sliced, and I grabbed whatever fan had done that and pulled them back up until the police got them. And then we got back to the dressing room. But that was a pretty hairy evening that night.
Do you? A couple of people, weirdly, in this line of work that I seem to interview a lot of people who have been stabbed, and a lot of people say that they don't notice it's happened at the time. Was that the same for you, or did you realise what had happened immediately?
No, not really. I mean, it's fortunately I wasn't penetrated. It was just a slice, and but it was back in those days, you if it got bad enough, normally your path of action was get in the ring, because if you had a riot situation going on, people had to climb into the ring and you could pick them off coming through the ropes, and that would be the safest place for you. And but we were already back up the path a little ways. So
as Monty Python says, but a flesh wound at least, so it could have been worse, I guess.
yes, it could.
The most reckless or stiff in the ring? Who's the? In fact, we'll stick with stiffest. Who was the stiffest?
I don't know, because I didn't have to wrestle any of those guys.
No. So you never even got like an enhancement guy just clonk you on one of those kind of things, or?
Oh yeah, but I mean those are more accidents than anything. But there were some guys, some old timers that were just stiff, and so.
Next one is most memorable thing that you saw happen on Jim Crockett's aeroplane.
You know what?
Go on.
I sat with the pilots.
Really?
I sat on the jump seat with the pilots, and the door closed, and I bypassed everything on the back of the airplane.
was that just a avoid the drama kind of thing, or?
Yeah. I mean, it was a very relaxing time for me. The view was unbelievable up in the cockpit.
Next question is most high strung, edgy or nervous kind of fella.
I don't know, because the thing that we didn't really back in the day. I mean, you'd go in the dressing room, get what you're doing, and then I'd get in my routine, and my routine every night was I'd watch the first 3 matches to see if the people were good, bad, indifferent, what they were buying, what they weren't. Then I'd go to get ready, and about 25 minutes from before I went to the ring, I would do 100 step ups or 100 free squats, because anybody that has been in athletics, you always have, when you first start a basketball game or a soccer game or a whatever, you get extremely, when you start running, you get tired, and then you kick back into second and third gear. Well, I wanted to go into the ring in second gear. I didn't want to go in the ring and not be stretched and my heart rate going. And so that's what I did. And that really helped my career, because then I never went through that period of where you can't breathe, and then you have to calm down a little bit before you go back in. So I don't know anybody that was really high strung. That was kind of a long, nothing happening answer for that. But
don't you worry. It's okay. I'll move on.
Have the other people said was high strung?
Well, maybe Sid or somebody.
Well, see, that was kind of like after my career.
Savage.
Well, when I was with the WWF and Randy was there, he was always in his own dressing room and very seldom saw him. So I never really hung around him enough to really know if he was edgy or not, but I could probably see that.
Well, I know you'll have an answer for this next one. Best jobber.
Best jobber?
Mm-hmm. No. Okay. Of the enhancement guys. Of the enhancement guys. Do you know? In fairness, Don Morocco of all people always used to say, "Hey, we're all jobbers," which is a great way of looking at it in that sense. But of the enhancement guys, the carpenters, who was the best?
Brad Armstrong's partner. What?
Tim Horner.
Tim Horner, Brad, and Tim. They were phenomenal talents. They could do anything in the ring.
Good answer.
And they never really reached a star status, and but they were just really talented guys.
Especially in Brad's case is amazing. The worst abuser of spray tan or baby oil.
It might have been the garlic guy.
He was a sensation for all the senses then, wasn't he? Smell, touch.
God. Yeah, baby oil was. I hated guys that put on baby oil. Guy, you couldn't grab onto them, you couldn't hold them, and I don't know that it made them look any better.
Greasier, at least they made him look.
Yeah.
Best and worst WWF road agents.
I think they all could probably have good days and bad days. You had to treat them all about the same.
Do you want some names?
Nick Bockwinkel's probably, because I'd known him for many, many years, and the rest of the guys, because I had not been to the New York area earlier in my career. My dad never went up there, so I mean, they didn't know me, and I didn't know them. So you just took the instructions and went on about your business.
Well, would you like me to name some names? Because we've got like some of the George the Animal Steel, Chief Jay Strongbow, Rene Goulet, Jack Lanza, Jerry Briscoe.
Yeah. All of those guys were good guys. I mean, I don't know that you could really say best and worst, because they were all just taking orders. And they'd get the do's and don'ts from a higher power, and then they were just passing it out. And we still, I mean, it wasn't okay, what do you guys, we just tell them what we're going to do for the finish, or they told us, and how we were going to do it, and everything else was left up to us. Again, that's not really what it's like now.
Best bar in Atlanta.
Well, the only bar that I kind of ever went to was at the airport.
Oh, really?
At the airport hotel, because we would fly into Atlanta every Friday night, and you'd have a nightcap, and then go to bed because you had to be at TV at 10 o'clock in the morning. And so we stayed at the Renaissance Hotel at the Atlanta airport, and that's pretty much the only place you had a chance to go. Some of the younger guys were a little more energetic than me, and but
was Ric Flair never good at convincing you to stay out past your bedtime then?
Oh no.
Really?
No, that was, we were there. Those stories were better heard the next day.
You're most likely right there. I couldn't disagree with you on that. Here's one that I've never asked before, and I'd like to get your idea on it. Is the most giving opponent that you ever faced? Just the person who would just be overly generous in the ring.
Um, well, that's not a good question for me
Okay.
because everybody that I wrestled, I was in charge. So you know, and it was the thing is you're not when a babyface isn't beating you up, people aren't screaming. And if it's your job to make people scream, that's
Yeah, that's it, yeah. You're right. You're right. I'll save that question for someone else though. I know we talked about Dory earlier. You can say Dory or someone else, but the smoothest wrestler that you ever faced.
other than Dory, maybe Bockwinkel.
Should we stick with Nick?
Yeah,
We'll
I
stick.
mean Dory. Yeah, that was.
Now you can't say yourself for this one. Biggest ladies man.
Oh, I for sure wasn't the biggest ladies' man.
Who was then?
Well, I mean, you got to say Flair.
Hmm?
He put the most effort into it.
With if there was like a Mount Rushmore of ladies men, Ric Flair, Tommy Rich, Ricky Morton, Stan Lane. Is that a fair foursome there, or would you put someone else in replacing them?
No, that's pretty strong.
Hmm?
That's pretty strong. They all worked hard at it.
Good for them. Good for them. The worst injury you ever saw or happened to you?
When I tore one of my hamstrings one time.
How long did it take you to recover from it?
Well, I had to wrestle the next day.
Oh, did you ever get it fixed?
Well, I had to just rehab it, but it was tough for a couple of days.
How
And
did,
I was in a car wreck and mashed my leg, and I didn't wrestle for about 5 weeks because of that.
how's the initial injury done?
Nothing was broken. It just mashed my leg, and I couldn't walk. I was on crutches.
What about the
So
hamstring? How was that injury done?
oh, just in the ring. I was running the ropes or running the turnbuckle or something, and it bing.
Hmm.
Then you can't run anymore, and so the match all of a sudden got in the middle of the ring.
Yeah, it was a less mobile affair, I imagine, definitely. I've only got a couple more left. Worst driver?
Worst driver?
Yes.
Do not know that because I drove all the time.
And that is the right answer. Biggest ribber?
That could have been Heenan.
Oh, yeah. Any examples, or did he get you?
No, I tried real hard to stay weary of all that stuff, and a lot of times you could just make sure you didn't get out of position, and you could avoid all that stuff. And
When you were in the WWF, I mean, you were in the Nasty Boys weren't there at the time, I know that, but there was Kurt Hennig, Mr. Fuji, Bobby Heenan. So did you have to be on your guard all times then?
um, you did if you were in the bar with everybody or whatever, and so it was.
But you weren't in the bar late anyway, so.
Well, I mean, I was in the bar late sometimes, but I didn't necessarily want to be hanging out with the boys.
How come?
Just you spend enough time with them. You can only hear the same story over and over.
No, fair enough then. I've got two more in this game, then we shall move on. The most, once again, you cannot say yourself, the most legitimate tough badass.
Well, Rashke was tough. Wahoo was tough. Brody was tough.
Pretty good ones. Any more? In fact, I'll move on to the last question here. Most memorable backstage fights. It doesn't involve you in any way. You're just a passive passive witness.
I don't know that I ever really saw one.
Really?
Backstage.
Well, there you go then. I thought there'd be. I don't know. I imagined there'd be tussles all the time, but just no.
Nah, that the guys from my era, for the most part, were not the egomaniacs, because they knew how it all came shape, and so not a bunch of egos got stepped on.